Morning we're going to look at Psalm 25, just the first 15 verses of that psalm. It's a psalm of David, and he writes this. He says, "To you, O Lord, I lift up my soul. O my God, in you I trust. Let me not be put to shame. Let not mine enemies exult over me. Indeed, none who wait for you shall be put to shame. They shall be ashamed who are wantonly treacherous. Make me to know your ways, O Lord. Teach me your paths. Lead me in your truth and teach me. For you are the God of my salvation. For you I wait all the day long. Remember your mercy, O Lord, and your steadfast love, for they have been from old. Remember not the sins of my youth or my transgressions. According to your steadfast love, remember me for the sake of your goodness, O Lord. Good and upright is the Lord, therefore he instructs sinners in the way. He leads the humble in what is right and teaches the humble his way. All the paths of the Lord are steadfast in love and faithfulness for those who keep his covenant and his testimonies. For your name's sake, O Lord, pardon my guilt, for it is great. Who is the man who fears the Lord? Him will he instruct in the way that he should choose. His soul shall abide in well-being, and his offspring inherit the land. The friendship of God is for those who fear him. He makes known to them his covenant. My eyes are ever toward the Lord, for he will pluck my feet out of the net." Somewhere along the way, we probably discovered words that we can live by. Sometimes, at least in the last 5 or 6 years, they've called those things memes. Maybe you've heard a few of them out there. They're just kind of a little phrase that becomes significant in our lives as a way of explaining things. Joyce and I discovered a meme many years ago, and that was basically to grow where you're planted. And we found that to be something very, very valuable, something that we came across very early in our lives. I know you've heard that verse before and you think that we do it, but when it becomes a meme in your life, it's something that motivates you and helps you and changes you. When Joyce and I were married, we were committed to the Lord, and we talked about it. I'm not so sure we knew all the circumstances that would be involved, but we were desiring to serve the Lord, and so we said, "Lord, anywhere, anytime, any place, under any circumstances, that's where we want to go." And our first call for ministry was up to a city very close by to where we had grown up, the city of Stony Plain, and we went in there to serve the church there as their youth pastor. They'd never had a youth pastor before, and we kind of went in there to begin that process of helping a church to know how to deal with their youth. I have to be honest with you, though, it was not a good experience for Joyce and myself, and I don't think it was a good experience for the church. I discovered very quickly that my giftings weren't involved with youth, and so it was a struggle for me, and we only lasted there a year, which was a relatively short time. One of the things that had happened is that we, rather than rent, we had decided to buy a house, and so we bought a house. Half of our income went to pay our house payments, and the other half we lived off of. I don't know, in my dad's generation and my mom's generation, everybody did that. If you wanted a home, you had to pay for it with every cent and every chance that you got until it was paid for, and then you could enjoy that. But for a while, it was tough going. And so we got into this house, and it was a very comfortable, fairly new home. We got a great deal on it, and as we lived there, we realized that there were a number of things that needed to be done around the home, but we just didn't have the money for it. And one of the things that we needed was a fence. And I remember thinking it through, thinking, do I want to spend money on a fence? And I looked at our children, who were very young at the time. They're too young to go wandering off. We'll wait on the fence. And we waited and we waited. We waited a year, we waited 2 years, we waited 3 years, we waited 4 years. And I kept on thinking to myself, well, I'm going to be leaving here within a few days or a year. We've given our lives to the Lord, and He was going to move us on. And so why should I build a fence for somebody else who'll probably want to change it anyways? And so I left that project to go. And it went on for another year and another year. And finally, after about 8 years, I looked around and I thought, well, our kids are getting old enough to run away and do all sorts of things. And so that was the year that I built the fence. Within a year of that building that fence, we got moved on to a different job in a different community, and we left that house. But I still remember the imprint that it placed on my life. I had wasted 8 years waiting for just the right time, just the right way, just the right kind of fence to build, because I had so many projects and so many things on the go. I really didn't accomplish very much at all. But it served us well. We remember that to grow where we're planted. And we've been planted around a fair bit. We've lived in a parsonage. We've lived in 2 rentals. We've owned a couple of homes at least. David writes this psalm as a way of helping people to understand what he learned on his journey. In a sense, this is David's mean for his life, that he wants us to understand and know this is what we need in order to be successful and happy. He says this, he says, "To you, O Lord, I lift up my soul." Now, sometimes life is a little bit bumpy, and we can live through that. But sometimes it's even rough. Sometimes it's impossible to escape from the trials and the troubles and all of those things that come into our lives. Sometimes we are unable to handle the things that are brought our way. When we were serving the church down in southern Alberta, one of our members had a 15-year-old son who was diagnosed with polyps in his intestines. When we left, we had taken a sabbatical for 3 months, and we left and kept out of contact with our church for 3 months. We came back thinking that this young man would have been back and doing everything, but when they operated on the polyps, they discovered cancer. At 15 years old, he was facing cancer. And his mom and dad, who were the nicest of the nice people that you could have in your church, wonderful, wonderful, caring individuals, now had a son that they didn't quite know or were able to understand. And it was tough on them. It was brutal on them. I remember driving into Calgary a few times with them just to try and find to get his temperature down. He was, because of the drugs they were giving him to combat his cancer, they think he got meningitis, and he suffered a brain injury. And as their pastor and as their friend, I had the privilege and the honor of being there when they actively unplugged their son. They knew that his quality of life was gone. He was straight-lining. They knew that there was nothing left there, and so as an act of faith, they unplugged him. And I watched him with them over the space of an afternoon, walk from this life into the next life. It's a privilege. It's a wonder. Sometimes the road is rough. And that isn't even the worst story that I have out of that time. I don't think there's anything more humbling than walking through the halls of a children's hospital, especially the cancer ward in a children's hospital. I had the privilege of doing that a number of times, realizing that half the kids in there probably won't make it out of there. Half of them will probably pass away while they're still under care. I met one girl, she was 7 years old. She'd been diagnosed with cancer when she was 2. Her entire life had been spent basically under the threat of cancer. She'd had a couple of surgeries. Because of the type of cancer that she had lost the lower part of one of her legs, below the knee. She was slated for a surgery in which they would take the femur and turn it around so that they could put a proper prosthetic on it because of it. I don't know. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with those kind of things that shock us? You know what? She smiled, she giggled, she teased, she was teased back, she was loved, but she still had to endure all of those things. David cries out from the depths of need that he has, somewhat similar to what these people experience. And he cries out and he says, "Unto thee, O Lord, I lift up my soul." There's no more that I can give to you. It's all that I am, all that I am able to be. My very soul I lift up to God, because I can't handle it. I can't deal with it. Lord, you have to try. And you can have me, Lord. You can have me until there is nothing left, because it is to you that my soul is lifted up. One of the things I think that you'll notice in this passage of Scripture is the word Lord all in capitals. Now, those of you who have been in a Bible study of mine, you should know, I don't know if everybody has been in a Bible study here, but you should know when you see all four letters in your English translation, all four letters as capital, it stands for something specific. Does anybody know what that is? Oh, good, because then I can tell you. It's the Hebrew word Yahweh, Y-H-W-H, that we sometimes understand and know. This word was so sacred that when scribes were copying the manuscripts that were there, they would take a Hebrew word, they would write the word, they would pronounce it letter by letter, and then they would move on to the next word. When they came to this word, Yahweh, they would not utter a sound. They were so worried, so concerned that if they uttered a sound, then somehow God would hear them and understand and see their sinfulness. So they were terrified of saying even this word. This is in the English translation. Whenever you see all four letters of the word Lord written in capitals, it's a direct translation of that word. We're not even sure how to pronounce it, because it's never spoken out loud. It is that important. The word is also translated sometimes, Lord, as I am. Or in another version, I will be whom I will be. When Moses says to the burning bush, "Whom shall I say is sending me?" God answers him back, "Tell them that Yahweh, that I am, that I will be who I will always be. There's none that can come in my way. I am that God. That is the one who will send you." It's really God's equivalent of David's cry out, "Lord, I lift up my soul." And what we find in the word Yahweh is what God is really saying to us is, "This is my soul that I give to you. This is who I am." It's found 9 times in those first 15 verses. God, 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 the Lord, the Lord, the Lord, again and again and again. Some people have made the claim or said that we live in a time of cafeteria Christianity. And what that means is that sometimes people will take out of Christianity what they want and leave the rest. If they don't like something about the church, they don't do anything about it. There was a leader down in the United States who decided that she could say that she was a good Catholic and still uphold abortion. only to be told by her archbishop that it wasn't right to be able to do that. That somehow she either had to change her mind or to leave the communion. And I think she ended up leaving the communion. People have a tendency to just go along and take what they want. Like, what is Christianity? Well, it's a way to get wealthy. What is Christianity? Well, it's a way to deal with my feelings of anger and frustration or loneliness or whatever else. What is Christianity? Well, Christianity is just something you watch on TV, and when you don't like it anymore, you just shut it off or turn to another channel until you find somebody who agrees with you, and then everything's okay. A few years ago, I was involved in a church group that was talking about some of those big issues that the church has faced over the last 10 or 20 years. And I remember getting into a conversation with one person, a young lady, and we began to talk about the nature of God. And I remember her talking about the Old Testament God versus the New Testament God. Oh, the New Testament God would never do that. The New Testament God would never say that. Again and again and again. But you see, and at the end of that, I said, well, this is the God of the Old Testament. This is what he says. This is who he is. No different from the God of the New Testament. It's just that we understand him a little bit better in the New Testament. And I remember her saying to me, I could never worship or serve a God like that. And I thought to myself, then how in the world can you worship God? Because if you have to put restrictions on him to match so that he matches how you feel, how good of a relationship is that with someone else? We face that in our own lives. Do we bully and push people around to get them to agree with us? Or do we allow them to say what they desire, what they want? In my mind, the great challenge that before us is that we need to understand that God is our God. Unto thee, O Lord, unto thee, Yahweh, unto thee, O Lord, I lift up my soul. It's not always neat. It's not always disposable. It's not always comfortable. But God is God, and we are his people. This psalm is a wonderful statement of the meme of David who said, I will give my soul to God. O Lord, I lift up my soul. O Lord, teach me your paths. You are the God of my salvation. O Lord, in your steadfast love, for they have been of old. Your goodness, O Lord, good and upright is the Lord. All the paths of the Lord. For your name's sake, O Lord, who fears the Lord? The friendship of the Lord. My eyes are ever toward the Lord. Excuse me. This psalm, I think, makes very clear what David is really trying to say. And what he's trying to say is that every facet and turn of our life needs to be focused on our relationship with God. Because he is the one who will walk with us and be with us. He will help us. No matter where we go, he will go. And no matter where he goes, we should go. We need to learn what he learns and what he teaches. We need to understand our God's love of mercy, that love that we can count on, that we need his love and his care for our purity, and that we need a true friend, and we need to keep ourselves from being trapped into that kind of relationship and those kind of things that keep us away from God. We don't have to look very far into the life of David to see that he was not a perfect man. David wasn't a perfect man. God said he's a man after my own heart, but maybe that's because David understood and knew that he needed to give God his soul. But that fact doesn't disqualify David from having some important things to say. In fact, maybe maybe because David struggled with the same things that we struggle, it makes it more prevalent in our lives for him to say and to do the things that he said that he would do and we should do as well. God wants us to be like him, not in power, but in character. And the thing he chooses to do in our lives needs to be understood because it is done for us and for the world around us. What sort of pathway are you on today? What are you looking to God for? May your prayer today be, to you, O Lord, I lift up my soul. To you, O Lord, I give my all. To you, O Lord, I hold nothing back. You are all grace and power, wonder and love. May the Lord bless his word to us today.